How do boats float? It makes sense to me that a little wooden boat can float. You know, it's made from a material that can float on its own, wood. But how does a massive ship made out of steel float? Last time I checked, steel doesn't float on its own, and some of these boats weigh hundreds or thousands of tons. I have a hunch that it's either magic or more likely physics. But before I crack the code and solve this question that's probably been puzzling scientists for thousands of years, what is a boat? A boat is defined as a small vehicle for travelling on water, and if a boat is big, it's called a ship. But from what I've heard, the size of the boat doesn't matter, it's how it handles the motion of the ocean that counts. Humans have been using boats for a long time, like a really, really long time. The earliest boats date back to around 8000 BC and were discovered in the Netherlands. And surprise, they weren't made of steel. They were canoes carved from a single log of wood. As civilizations began to grow and technology advanced, boats got bigger and more complex. The ancient Egyptians had boats that were long and narrow and can carry multiple people, which had sails and paddles, and they were again made from light materials such as papyrus reeds. The constant march of progress led to ships getting bigger and heavier. By the 13th century, Spanish and Portuguese sailors were sailing the seas in 50-ton caravels. And by the time Captain Jack Sparrow was gallivanting through the Caribbean, ships such as galleons and carracks were topping the scales at 500 and 2,000 tons respectively. And by the early to mid 1800s, the first ships with hulls made from wrought iron instead of wood set sail. So a quick Google search reveals that scientists and engineers haven't actually been puzzled by this question for a very long time, and have obviously known exactly what they were doing all this time when designing boats. Archimedes, you've probably heard of him, sussed out a thing called buoyancy. Basically, when an object like a boat is placed in a fluid, like water, the object is pulled downwards by gravity. This forces water out of the way, displacing it. The weight of the water being displaced is equal to a force called buoyant force. The force pushes up against the object, acting against gravity. If the buoyant force of an object is greater than the force of gravity acting on the object, it will float. So the heavier an object, the more water it needs to displace to stay afloat. So if you want to make a boat out of concrete or obsidian, go for it. You'll just need to get creative with the design. It's important to consider the density of material being used to construct your ship. Density is the mass of material contained in a given volume of the material. A ton of steel and a ton of feathers might have the same mass, being a ton, but there will be a greater volume of feathers, meaning steel is denser than feathers. Steel ships mostly consist of hollow compartments filled with air, as well as other buoyant materials, all surrounded by a steel shell with various support structures. These areas increase the ship's total volume without increasing its overall mass significantly. This increased volume means the ship displaces more water, increasing the buoyant force acting against gravity, keeping it afloat. So with this in mind, you can create a boat as big as you want. As long as you do the maths correctly, you can even create what are effectively floating cities. The Oasis of the Sea is a cruise ship that can house nearly 9,000 people at any one time, which is roughly the same as the population of Pocklington. It is massive, being 360 metres long, 60.5 metres wide, and having a displacement of 100,000 tonnes. That's as much as nearly 14,000 fully grown male African elephants. Hopefully, you're now equipped with the necessary knowledge to build a boat of your own. But don't do this. Leave it to the experts. I hope this at least half answered your question.